Well, B.J. Palmer,
Yes.
the son of the founder of chiropractic. Chiropractic was actually, the first adjustment was done in 1895, the same year that X-ray was developed by Dr. Rankin.
Really?
And it was, the first adjustment was done in Davenport, Iowa, on a deaf janitor who actually had ringing in his ears. And D.D. Palmer's son, B.J., said, I think it was around in 1926, he said there are 3 causes to disease. And he used the word dis-ease,
yes.
okay, or a
Yeah.
non-balance in our body. There are 3 causes to disease. And currently, I believe them 100%. The first one is toxins. Toxins that we eat, we drink, we smoke, and we breathe. Then there's trauma. Trauma that we've sustained in our life. Either birth to 7 to however old, trauma is the next one.
Yes.
And the last one is thought,
Yes.
stress. You know, currently, do you know anyone that's not stressed out?
No.
It's amazing.
No.
But so when you think about that, all cancers, all diseases, all illness that we have as human beings, our humanism, is caused by toxins, trauma, and thought.
Right.
It's astounding.
But
It
we
just-
have control over a high percentage of this, don't we?
Do we?
Yeah, I think we can choose what we put in our body, on our body. We can deal with the tragedies that have happened in our life therapeutically, energetically, and I believe that we can also watch our thought. Thought watch is like the unobserved mind. It's like the pathological critic in the mind causes a lot of the upset energetically in the body too. So I think as a human being, we do have a high percentage of something we can control. Not all of it, but a lot of it we can.
I think that our humanism, we as humans, I don't know, some of that can be guided through, but toxins, they're all around us. And we're going to talk heavily about that in just a second.
Yeah.
The traumas, again, you know, those traumas can be falling down as a toddler on up through our life. And the thought, I think that, you know, thought, that's a whole nother show that we need to talk about.
Yes, it
We
is.
should bring a psychologist because he can psychoanalyze us. But the thought is the stuff that we take from our childhood and we keep putting it in the bag and carrying it along with us. And I see a lot of that in my
Yes.
clinic where I may adjust someone's atlas and they start crying, not because it's painful, but because it brings up a lot of emotions and thoughts that actually cause that misalignment to stay in place
I
in the
believe
first
that's
place.
true. I've seen it, I've experienced it myself, and I truly believe that is true. But what a blessing it is to allow yourself to have give yourself permission to have that experience and understand that you're releasing something.
It's a safe place. Our
It's a
clinic
sa-
is a
yeah.
very safe place
Yes, it is.
to have those things. And we see it all the time, and so we're
Yeah.
quite comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about toxins?
Well, I was going to ask you, what do you think, first of all, we'll talk about toxins, but what do you think's happening in the food industry? And what do you think their intentions are towards our food? Because I've told others, you know, even on the show in the past, I've said, when you go into the market and you start reading the labels, there's so many toxins. There's sugar, artificial sugar, corn syrup in everything. And there's not much that's alive. And the only way that people are going to start understanding this is people like you and I talking about it. And maybe the way we talk about it, they've heard it before, but maybe the way they hear it today is going to give them pause to stop and really think about what they are responsible for and putting in their body. It's a choice. You can do the corn syrup or you can do honey. You've got choices, right?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it's an education process.
Yes.
Coming on the show is my chance to be able to educate and educate more than the person that's just sitting in front of me.
Yes.
You know, we're not born sick. We're born healthy. We're born perfect. in a
Yes.
sense,
Yes.
our bodies, and we pollute them one bite at a time. But a majority of the public doesn't realize how dangerous the foods that we eat are. And I'm as guilty as anyone, okay? I have 2 kids, and sometimes they want a fast food something, you know, and just in a busy lifestyle, it's easier to go through fast food than it is to go home and make a nice big salad.
I don't think we can be perfect,
We can't be perfect.
but we can actually control to a certain level, and living consciously about at least what it is that is out there that's dangerous to us.
We can be diligent and we can start to read labels. And we hear this all the time. We hear, oh, you have to read labels, you have to look at this, you have to look at that. But most people don't really realize how frightening it is and how important it is to understand about the things that are in our food. It's not just our food, it's the food worldwide.
Yes.
We're seeing people all around the world that have taken our Western diet and they're getting sick and they're dying from it.
Yes.
Let's go to basics. The basics are, what do we put on our food? Okay? What we put on our food is a major concern to me. I'm just going to talk about one herbicide that I think is frightening, and it's called atrazine. And we've been using atrazine for the last 50 years on our crops.
Is it a pesticide?
It's a herbicide.
Herbicide.
It's a
Okay.
herbicide. But this herbicide, I was doing some research this morning, and they actually said in this research that I was doing, the EPA said, we don't know how atrazine affects children,
I don't believe that.
but we think that it may affect it similar to an adult. And that blows my mind, because a child is not an adult. A child has a growing liver, a liver that is
Yes.
continuing to grow,
Yes.
organs that are continuing to grow, and they don't deserve to have these poisons
Right.
that are put into their bodies. So let's talk about atrazine really quickly. Atrazine is a herbicide. It's put on corn. It's put on soybeans. It's put on Christmas trees. It's put on grass. It's a very, very common herbicide.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's prolific. And one of the problems with atrazine is that boys, the male species, actually has a receptor in their cells that atrazine fits perfectly to. And this puzzle piece causes sterility in men. It doesn't take many generations to figure out that, we've been using it for 50 years. We're starting to see our birth rates declining.
Oh, we have a
Okay,
problem.
we just had a census come out, and the census
Yeah.
is declining. I mean, it's not growing at the rate that they expected it to. Some of that may be due to the recession, but some of it may be due to it's harder for women to get pregnant. Okay, and atrazine could be, I'm not saying it is, but it could be part of the cause. We're finding, and the other frightening thing today when I was doing my research, atrazine has a very long half-life in water. Not so much on crops. When you spray it on the crops,
We're drinking it.
not only are we drinking it, but we're eating it. Not only are we eating it, but the animals that we eat are eating it. The things that we feed our animals, they're all eating this atrazine. And so this is where the problem comes, is that before, and I'd like to talk about how this whole mess started and when it started.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. So let's go back to World War II. That's really, I think, when the mess of our food supply started. Just after World War II, we started making frozen foods. Actually, during World War II, Birdseye created frozen foods for the troops.
Right.
And then after World War II, we started implementing frozen foods into our food supply.
Yeah.
You remember when you were a kid? It was like such a
TV
great thing.
dinner
to have
was
a TV
really
dinner.
great, and
It was
nothing was
great.
alive in it.
There was nothing, the
Nothing is
corn and the
alive.
Salisbury steak and all those things.
Chicken,
Ugh. Okay, and that was a big part of growing up. Was
Oh,
it was
yeah.
such a special thing to have a TV dinner.
Freed up the mothers, that's for sure.
It's true. And now, what do? We take our kids to some of the fast food chains
Doing
as a
the same
treat,
thing.
as a reward for being good. We're going to poison our kids, and poison our
It's
family.
almost the same thing, though, in a way. I mean, if it's not
It
the
is. It's-
frozen dinners and the food that's microwaved, now we're going to fast foods. But here's the thing that's got me going, is that the food industry knows.
Absolutely.
The Food and Drug Administration knows.
Absolutely.
Why are we as a nation so passive that we are sitting back? Not only are we losing our freedoms, but look at what's happening to our health. Then you bring in the insurance companies, then you bring in, especially, it's like a matrix. It is like
It's
a domino.
sickness triad. Did I show you my sickness triad outside the window of my clinic?
No.
I have a dialysis center to the left side. You look out my window, and there's a dialysis center. It's like the Hotel California. You can come, you can never leave. People on dialysis are there 4 hours a day,
Yes.
3 days a week.
Big money,
To the right side
big industry.
is a medical building. I call it the sickness center because every day there's an ambulance there that's taking someone to the hospital. And in the middle is Walgreens. Whoops, I'm not allowed to say that. It's a drugstore.
It's a drugstore.
And in the drugstore, there are actually over 100 remedies for a headache, but not one of them cures it. All it does is it masks the symptoms.
It masks the symptoms.
Okay? And that's the drug dealer for the sickness triad. And then when you look over the drugstore, there's a fast food restaurant. And that's the source of the sickness triad. And I explain that to all of my patients that, look, this is it in a nutshell. This is where people are getting sick. And this is the result. You're either going to end up in the dialysis center with diabetes, or you're going to end up over at the sickness center, or you're going to end up in the middle taking something for a headache that doesn't work.
I have never heard of, in the last few years especially, between kidney failure
Oh, it's terrible.
and them opening up more and more dialysis centers, and the cost, as a person who wouldn't have insurance, who would have to come up with a cost for dialysis, they could not.
They couldn't afford it. They lose
They
the house.
could not. Well, that's another problem that's happening in our country, is that it's almost like there's something there that's planning for us as a species to decline and go through this really interesting process in our death. And I think that we have to take our power back. We have to educate ourselves. We cannot no longer stand back and be blindfolded. I mean, just today, I read in the Oregonian that there's a law that's being passed in Congress that basically it's unbelievable. You will have to be regulated. You can't go out and buy food from a farmer. They're going to be regulated. They're going to regulate the food. It's like herding the sheep into a corral and closing the door. And we've got to wake up really fast, because we're talking about right now going organic
Right.
to survive. They're closing all these doors very, very fast.
They're tying our wrists.
Including taking herbs.
Sure.
They're cutting
Supplements.
down that.
Supplements. You're not going to be able to take vitamins without a prescription.